Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Hafsa Altaf, and today we bring to you the first episode of Identity. What is Identity, you ask? It's a campaign series which recognises and celebrates ethnic minorities within the creative industry. I have two guests here with me today, Honey and Marverine. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Marverine Cole. I'm a journalist and broadcaster, so my experience as a journalist is 25 years in the media, 15 as a television and radio news reporter, producer and presenter. Worked for BBC, Sky News, ITV, Channel 5 News, and I also now lecture in journalism and media.
Awesome.
My name is Honey, also known as Honey Love. I am a content creator, a events manager, and a social media influencer. I'm based in London, and I've been doing this for social media influencing for 2 years now.
Wow. So let's just get into this. I recently read an article which I came across a phrase which said, if we want diverse marketing and advertising, then we need diverse and inclusive environments. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with that, particularly when you look at marketing and advertising. And there's been a couple of campaigns recently that have caused public outrage. And the first one that springs to mind is the H&M advert with the little black boy in his hoodie. And it said something about him being a little monkey.
Yeah.
And that obviously, a lot of people were upset by that because it seemed to indicate a racist attitude to
There was another one alongside that where a white guy was wearing it and he had King of the Jungle.
King of the Jungle was the white guy, and the black little boy was Cheeky Monkey.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And the racist connotations behind that, caused a very big backlash and outrage amongst people worldwide. I seem to remember there was footage of one of the H&M stores in South Africa being trashed literally by angry customers. But it goes back to what you were saying about if you want diverse marketing and advertising, you need inclusive environments. And people were upset, not only because of the racist connotations, but also because there's a feeling that how on earth can a campaign get to that stage and no one who signed off the campaign, no one realised that potentially that had those connotations. So it begs the question, who's sitting on those decision-making boards?
Yeah.
Is it a mixed team that represents their customers from around the world or whatever?
What's funny is when you're actually marketing and advertising, it goes through such a big process from the initial idea to the sign-off to the actual photo shoot, picking out the clothes. You're telling me not one person noticed throughout the whole process that this was happening, even though they do say Sweden, there isn't a lot, because that's where the actual campaign was shot. In H&M, there isn't a lot of diversity. But if you are selling to the wider market, H&M is based everywhere worldwide. Surely, you should have a diverse group of people making those decisions, because if there was a ethnic minority in there, I don't think that mistake would have happened, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, because there's also the case that even if there was one ethnic minority on that decision-making board, sometimes if you're outnumbered,
you're not
you
going to say
might
nothing.
not feel empowered enough to speak up about that situation. So it's tricky. We need more than one. We need boards of companies where the power is, where the money lies. They need to be have a mix or a fairer representation of people in those panels in senior management positions.
Yeah, and I think, Honey, because being a social media influencer yourself, and from Somali descent, it's a lot of, we're being recognised more in the industry, aren't we? What's your take on that?
We are. We're being recognised a lot more in the industry. But I honestly feel when it comes to social media influencing, a lot of the girls that are social media influencers in terms of makeup and actually do promote the brands do not actually get paid compared to the other brand ambassadors, where some of them just get the free products and they're just happy to be on the promotion list, and you see them actually getting excited and saying, oh, I've made it to the promotion list. And I look at it and I'm thinking,
have you really made it though?
Have you really made it? You're not getting paid, because I know for other ambassadors, they're getting ridiculous amount of money just to put on this lipstick or this foundation or face mask. So I think we still got a long way to go, and I think the sooner that these influencers say no to these products and say, you know what, if you're paying this person this much, I deserve to be paid this much, because they've got the same followers.
Yeah.
And I think going back to makeup, the new Fenty Beauty that was released by Rihanna, like Marverine was saying before, what do you want to expand on that?
A huge game changer. Rihanna's totally changed the game with the Fenty range, which is marvellous, by the way. I've got several lipsticks, glosses, I've got a shimmer stick, you name it. I spent a lot of money there, and I'm not ashamed to say it. But what she did was she put other mainstream beauty brands on the run. The brands who always said in the past, oh, we can't produce any makeup shades beyond honey tone, excuse the pun, it's your name, or
Caramel.
light tan or caramel. There's no point because no one will buy them. The market isn't there. That's always been the moan of a lot of mainstream brands. And then there seemed to be a slight flurry amongst those brands around the same month that Rihanna released her brand.
It was ridiculous how
you saw that,
it was a week when I saw the L'Oreal adverts all over TV, and I was thinking, hold up, you didn't have this amount of shades a week ago.
But when Rihanna took 40 shades
40 shades, and now everyone's got like 40 shades, and other companies are coming out saying, well, we've actually had this amount of shades, then why didn't you advertise before?
Yeah, because they didn't want to put the budget in. They didn't want to put the budget to it because, again, there seems to be some sort of an issue around the fact that we as brown-skinned women, as dark-skinned women, we are not marketable and we are not worth marketing to. It's a difficult one. I worked for 3 years as a presenter on QVC, the shopping channel. That is Britain's first ever and most established and most profitable shopping channel in the UK. A lot of money, customers spend a lot of money on beauty.
Yes.
Sell a whole range of makeup of all manner of brands. But there was always, it would stop at caramel or whatever in most of the ranges, except for Bare Minerals. Bare Minerals would do a few darker shades. And I piloted a show at QVC of makeup for darker skin tones. But we only did one. We didn't do any more because they said, oh, there's no market for it. No one's buying the darker shades. And you just think, you are foolish. You're missing out on an entire market. Mm-hmm. You could be making a lot of money if you put the time and the effort and the will into promoting shades for darker skin tones.
Yeah. And I think just generally, I think the whole uprise in skin tones and people of colour are being appreciated a lot more. Like we have the Vogue magazine, who's now recently used Halima Aden, the Somali model.
Yeah, Fenty with the hijabi as well, because she's Somali and she's hijabi. And Nike's using hijabi models now as well. Yeah. I think it's a good thing.
I think Ibtihaj Mohammed, she was the fencer, the Olympic first fencer who wore a hijab. She's been recognised a lot more. And I think just generally, like personal perspective, while I was growing up, I didn't have anybody to look up to as a role model. And nowadays you have so many different people. You have people from ethnic minority backgrounds who are being acknowledged a lot more and being featured. And I think in today's society, being recognised is something that we should celebrate and recognise a lot more.
Absolutely. I think it shows, there are statistics that show that representation and looking at people from all backgrounds and including them in decision making in a business is good for business. It's borne out in companies' profits. So it's silly
like
not to do it.
Yeah, we're literally breaking records. Yeah, Fenty with the makeup selling, sold out. Yeah, Black Panther.
Yeah,
that's now on course. That movie I read, it's possibly in Variety or Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, it's almost overtaken Titanic as the highest grossing movie ever made. That's phenomenal. Like hundreds of billions of dollars. But coming back to the representation and about having people in senior positions, and you talk about Halima being in Vogue. Was that the cover where there were several women of colour on the front?
Yes.
And I believe that was a Vogue UK cover.
Yeah.
This comes back to the fact that it is now Edward Enningful,
who's a black,
who is the editor, who's the first
black
person of colour ever to edit that magazine. So when people get into positions where they make those decisions, they make the right decisions and just go, well, let's look at the wider world.
Yeah,
not
they
just a
acknowledge
narrow view.
everyone, not
Yeah.
kind of just your normal whoever was back in the days, kind of like featured in magazines before, your slim white models. It's more like, you know, cultural appreciation
And a wider appeal. So you appeal
and these
to more
magazines
people,
now
more
are
people are
actually
going to buy them.
hiring young girls of black, who are Muslim as well. Glamour started to hire some. So now you're seeing diversity in the magazine. BuzzFeed, you've got Ikran there, and then you're seeing a lot of different diversities, different stories that usually BuzzFeed won't pick up.
Yeah.
She's picking up.
Going back to yourself, you said you were in the media for about 25 years. You've got experience.
Yeah.
So how did you come about coming into the media?
So it's interesting, you talk about representation and Ikram representing as well for young Muslim women. You know, I became a journalist. I was inspired by seeing some of those pioneers, like Maura Stewart being one of the first black women to read the news on British television, and Sir Trevor MacDonald as well, one of the first black men to read the news. When I was a little girl, you know, 7, 8 years old, I loved the news and I loved watching it, and I saw them and I thought, wow, people in authority, you know, telling the rest of the country about what's happening in the world today. This is great. I want to do that job. It took me a while to get there to do it. You know, I did a bit of kind of entertainment news reporting for a cable TV channel in Birmingham, did a bit of radio presenting and stuff. And then I decided journalism. It's got to be journalism. And I went back to uni and did my postgrad here at Birmingham City University. Best thing I ever did. And I became a television news reporter and worked in radio as well. And now I've turned out to be one of those pioneers, because since Moira, there have been very, very few women of African Caribbean heritage having read the news. And I'm one of only 9 in Britain who's read network news to appear on British television in 35 years. There's only been 9 African Caribbean women in 35 years.
That's astonishing.
And I am one of them. I feel proud of them to say that. And so hopefully, somewhere along the line, some young girl, some young boys looked at me and gone, oh, could I do what Marverine could do? So representation is very, very important, because it drives and inspires people to be the change.
Definitely. I think you mentioned before that you had a daughter who didn't have anyone to look up to.
Yeah, so I've got my 7-year-old daughter, and she watches a lot of YouTube and TV, especially YouTube. And I remember one day she came up to me and she goes, Mummy, I want to be lighter. And I was like, what do you mean? Because she's in a household where we're constantly telling her black is beautiful, you know. Yeah. And then she was like, look, I don't see girls like me on YouTube, because constantly all she sees is light skin. Even though she's got curly, long hair, that still doesn't matter. It's the complexion of the skin. And I think we need diversity in media, in YouTube, in social media. We need to encourage a lot more girls from ethnic minorities to actually be on the forefront, and so that younger girls can actually see someone that looks like them, that represents them. Like with me now, when I came on social media, I'm Somali born, grew up here, but I'm a non-hijabi. Yeah. So there's a lot of young girls who are fighting with their identity. So when they see me on social media and they see this outspoken female who talks about what she wants, who's telling them, you know what, you can be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want. They've got someone to look up to, and they actually come to me and say, you know what, thank you, honey. Just seeing you doing you inspires us to go out there and and you know, we can relate to that. And you know, and the more they see more diversity out there, the more that we empower the rest of the girls.
And being of Muslim background myself, I think it's something that we struggle with. We have a societal identity and then we have a cultural identity. And in our culture, it's when we say to family members, oh, we want to be this, we want to do something media related, they were like, okay, do it. But what are you going to do for your real job?
Because what it is within our culture, it's you either need to be a teacher or
engineer,
lawyer. So those So let's say the creative industry does not exist within our community.
It's not taken
but then
seriously.
we're the same communities who are like, oh, we're being misrepresented by the media because no one's there.
There's no one's out there to represent us.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to work on.
What do you think then's needed what needs to happen in mainstream media, do you think, now to try and improve representation of
They need to definitely
BME
start
women?
hiring a lot of diversity. Even like EastEnders, like we grew up watching EastEnders, and I sit there and I'm thinking, okay, I've been watching EastEnders for so many years. We've seen Asians, we've seen, every other culture go through.
Yeah.
It's time we need to start incorporating other cultures. Why haven't I seen a Somali family
Yeah.
in EastEnders after all these years?
Yeah.
Especially when there's a lot of a Somali community in the East End.
Yeah.
And trust me, they would bring so much good storylines to even make that, take it to another level. And so we need to start seeing different cultures in these
Definitely.
shows.
And I think, just generally, the whole cultural appreciation, cultural appropriation. Well, there would be no cultural appropriation if you had people within the media who were of these cultures or these minorities to represent it. Because there's a constant battle between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. Like, I think it was the Versace campaign. They had the hijabs, and I think it was in America.
Was it one of the catwalks?
Yeah, and it was in America, and people from the Muslim communities were like, well, that's cultural appropriation. You've stolen Muslim identity, which is a headscarf, and you've put it on a model who's not even Muslim.
Oh,
and
what, they had models walking down the catwalk in hijabs? What?
Yeah.
All of them?
Hijabs or turbans?
Yeah, turbans or hijabs.
Okay.
And wrapped like how a Muslim. So
basically, or scarves.
Yeah, so they used that as a fashion icon, but to us, as a hijab wearer myself, to me it means so much more than that.
And this is almost where a lot of the problem lies, isn't it? In that it's those making the decisions, putting marketing out, putting advertising out, deciding what models are going to wear on catwalks and so on and so forth. And these decisions are taken without care, thought and attention to how they're going to be perceived by the wider world. A lot of these companies that are making these decisions are not considering their global market, and they are definitely not considering the fact that anything that goes wrong is not going to go viral.
Yeah.
Because you look at H&M, all these other campaigns that have gone wrong. There needs to be more thought about recruitment and retention of staff and promoting people to senior levels. Of course, who have got the skill. I'm not talking about positive action. They've got the skills, they've got the experience, but they've had all the same training that everyone else has to get into those senior management positions, to sit on those boards, to make the right decision. That needs to happen in a lot of organisations.
Before we leave today, I'd like to ask you, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's aspiring to join in the media industry?
The advice I would give is stay consistent, always speak your truth. You will get backlash, you will get hate, but just brush that over. Don't let that stop you. And just be in your own lane. Like, make sure that your competition isn't anybody else.
Yeah.
Your competition is yourself. And just be better than the person you were yesterday. And consistency is the key. Just knock on every door. And go for it.
And that's amazing advice. What about yourself?
That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Some of the things along the similar lines, really. Be passionate about what you want to get into, whether that's TV, radio, YouTubing, whatever, but learn the medium, understand the medium,
Definitely.
know it well. Also get connected within the industry. You can't be in this industry and just be like an island. I think you need to know who else is out there. But stay in your lane. Don't be too influenced by competition. And ask for help, ask for skills. If you want to get upskilled, if you want more training, go out and get it. That's it.
Thank you to my wonderful two guests, Marverine and Honey. Thank you for watching. Please join us again next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Identity.